Joining us now on ICANN Media, Dr. Tim Ludwig. You're with Appalachian State University, and you're here today talking about assessing the safety culture in a company. Sounds like it's simple to do. I'm thinking not.
Well, unfortunately, the concept of safety culture is hard to get your arms around. I mean, there's words like assumptions, values, beliefs, and oftentimes, since I'm a psychologist, and to try to describe what that means is very difficult. So our focus is on the behaviors a person does. So do I take the safe alternatives? Do I choose a safe path? Am I willing to coach my fellow employee when I see them taking risks? These are things I can, from a behavioral perspective, these are things I can see and I can hear people do, and therefore I can do something about. I don't know your belief, and I can't really do much about it, but when I hear you talk to a peer, I can shape that. And same thing, culture is not only just employees, it's the managers and the support people and folks that are surrounding the employee. And so therefore the managers behave too. They talk and they make decisions. And so instead of this kind of cloudy concept that nobody can really understand, we try to define it in ways that we can go see if it's happening.
Well, you talk about an immature safety culture versus a mature safety culture. What would be the difference between the two?
Well, an immature safety culture is one where you recognize that the behavior that somebody engages in it kind of occurs right before the injury, right, or right before the near miss, and therefore it's easy to blame that person. And so an immature culture, when someone gets hurt or gets caught doing something against the rules, they're blamed. And all hell breaks loose, right? And so therefore everybody gets scared that they're going to be the next one blamed. When in fact a more mature culture sees that the behavior is really a function of these other decisions that were made, and how we support the employee. So we try to train, we try to put together a measurement program to provide the right equipment, facilities, supervision, and the like. And the way I like to think about a mature safety culture is you respect the values of the person, and you think that everybody goes to work to be safe. They're not there to try to get hurt. They're not there to try to take shortcuts. The question is, why did we put these barriers in their way? To the point where either knowingly or unknowingly they find themselves in a situation they have to take risks. I have to take this shortcut because my supervisor's kind of encouraging production. I have to take this shortcut because, man, this is just a hard way of doing it and this is easier. I have to take a shortcut because my peer over there has been here for 10 years and they told me how to do it. Right? These are all barriers that get in the way of me trying to do this professionally and safely. And so a mature safety culture, instead of blaming, is one that tries to identify what these barriers are. And when you remove them, believe me, those employees out there, there's a lot of energy and there's a lot of passion to try to make the place safer.
Well, because it's inclusive and it's involving everybody as well, isn't
it? Exactly. The strong safety culture is one that you're not only going to see people making the decisions that keep them safer, they're wanting to be involved. They're going to report near misses. They're going to report when they had a behavior that could have caused a near miss or an injury. They're going to be willing to talk to the guy who's been around for 10 years that's all crusty and give them feedback.
Yeah, the guy in the audience, I don't know if he appreciated you pointing him out as such, but he didn't get up and come after you, that's for sure.
He was smiling.
Yeah.
He was smiling.
You talked about compliance and discipline and how it can, a culture that uses those two forms to enforce safety can be effective, but I'm thinking it's not the best way to go about it from what we've just said.
What we hear from employees in the most mature safety programs that we've encountered is that discipline is needed. It is a piece of the puzzle. It needs to be consistent, it needs to be fair, and it needs to focus on the right things. Right, and so the concept nowadays is a justice approach. What the right level of correction for the right infraction, and so discipline is a piece of the culture. So it's not like a mature culture doesn't use discipline. It's that immature cultures overuse it because it does seem effective, but it's kind of an illusion, right? It's you do something, you get disciplined, and you're not going to do it again. No, okay, that's fine. But does that solve the problem? It doesn't really get at the kind of culture you want to create where peers are working with peers to help each other stay safe. In a discipline-oriented culture, peers are helping peers avoid the discipline, right? And so what do you have then? You got hiding things, and when the supervisor comes around, everybody sits up straight, and then they're gone. They're discussing.
I think everybody's been a part of those inspections.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I think that's.
So tell me then. You people may be under the impression that they've got a safety culture at their workplace. How do they go about assessing it and evaluating it?
That's a trick, because if you kind of walk around and chat with people, or you kind of get a committee together or a safety suggestion box, what you tend to get are kind of the vocal minority. The folks have really strong opinions, and then you start trying to understand, well, does this really reflect everyone else? And it's probably not the case. And so the idea of a survey is to give a confidential forum, asking the right questions. That's a big piece of it, So we're not only asking about your behavior, but the behavior of managers and your perceptions of the safety management systems and those kind of systems in place, to the end where we have a survey of not only employees but also managers and the like. There's a lot of psychometrics that go into it, so you can't just start creating questions and throw them out there, because the way the questions are worded and the sequencing and the like. But also, once you have the survey results back, it's useful to have a norm. So in places where, like in the petroleum industry, where the same survey is used across many companies, you can have the norm across companies, and you can compare your company to that norm. And so, the idea of assessing safety is twofold. It's certainly to get a representative sample, as many people as possible, so you got a true understanding what's happening in your company, and you can see the gaps between, say, management and workers, or different shifts, which are always pretty interesting. But also you can compare where you're at with the overall industry, or where you're at over time. As you try to improve, you can compare, you can follow the improvement over time.
And then you say it's important to have a focus group afterwards, because just having a survey and putting out the results is not enough.
I showed a slide of a company we worked with a number of years ago, and you saw in the operations that they were saying, the managers, the operators, were showing that the managers were pushing production, but the managers are saying, no, we don't. We're favorable in that area. We're never pushing production. So there's a gap. But then if we just give them that number as feedback back to the managers, what do we do with it? So if you have this interview setting, you get the right people in the room, you're asking the right questions in a confidential, no name, no blame kind of thing, then we end up with the details around it. Well, we did this turnaround. We shut everything down. We were doing maintenance and stuff like that, and a whole bunch of more people were brought in, and we were all kind of hurried, and we were trying to really get this done. And then you can ask them questions. Well, did supervisors say they needed, give you a quota in time? And they might say, well, not really. It's just how we've always done it. And that's useful feedback, instead of saying, you should go and get on the supervisor's case because they're pushing production. And then they can get kind of specific. Now, the rules are you can't name anybody. We don't want to know any supervisor's name. It's not to try to get anybody in trouble. But it allows us to describe the context where these results come from in a way that then, the managers, safety managers, employees team can do something about it.
Well, and that's the final point in this as well that you made, is that you can't just do the survey, do the focus groups, and go, hey, we've done our job. You've got to actually start to implement some change.
That's my last slide. Don't do a survey unless you are going to give everybody the results. Don't hide them, because then there's going to be rumors and innuendos, and it's going to go bad. But also be committed to do something about it. Show where the gaps are. Say we're going to have these conversations, and we're going to try to remove these barriers.
Tim, thank you very much.
Hey, pleasure.
We've been chatting with Dr. Tim Ludwig here at the Petroleum Safety Conference in Banff.